We're a two-player game, right?
We're a two-player game.
We are a two-player
We're sort
game.
of like a, it's a duel. It's a pair thing, man. We're a duo.
And there's technically 4 of us. There's 4 Murphs.
Yeah.
But this is the two-player version of the Murphs. What's up, everybody? My name is Nick.
I'm Mike.
We are the brothers Murph. As you heard, there's another brother and a sister. So
Yeah,
there's
there
4
are.
of us.
There-
So here's the thing. If this is too much for you,
You
all
can't.
4 of us, you really can't
You're
handle. Let's just
lucky
put it
we
that way.
only bring you the dual
You're
version
really
here.
lucky.
You're lucky.
Nonetheless, this is our favorite two-player versions of game. This is the thing that's very, very popular right now in board games.
It's had a resurgence.
There's a
yes.
whole bunch of the duel games coming out, which is, again, kind of ebbed and flowed in the board game industry.
I'm not anti it. I always find interest when they do that. So
there was like the roll and write craze, and now I feel like we're in the duel craze, which honestly, I love all those games. But nonetheless, these are going to be games that were previously other games, but now these are two-player versions of those games. Sometimes they're similar, sometimes they're very, very different. Let's talk about our favorite ones. Number 10 is going to be Caper Europe. Caper Europe is so much fun. This is by Keymaster Games, and this is a great, ultimately a big tug of war game, which I guess, two-player games lend themselves to tug of war games, but I really, really enjoy Caper Europe. This is a game where you are thieves and you are running heists around, and in Caper Europe, there's a couple of different countries you can be in. Like you can play in like Paris, or you can play in like Rome or something like that. And there'll be slight differences between those different cars you can kind of go for, but for the most part, they are mostly the same. And this is a game where there are going to be these various locations on the board. And these are various things that you can kind of steal, art, jewels, all these different kinds of things. And you're going to be playing out cards to those locations on your side of the board. And you're basically going to be pulling this little mask, a little like thief, black cat mask, towards you as you're doing so. And you basically want to pull it all the way to your side, because that's going to determine who ends up getting those things, is wherever this kind of tug of war thing is. And so it's really, really fun. I enjoy tug of war games because it's fun to kind of constantly mess with each other and be like, aha, I'm doing this now. Oh, darn, okay. I now need to put something here to kind of counteract that because I really need this, because there's, various set collections, different things. You can also put various different thieves on your side of the board. There's like equipment that you can go. You can like burn other thieves on the other side. Lots of different kind of stuff. But it's just this big tug of war game. And like, what do you concede? Be like, okay, I'm not getting that. I'm going to let Mike have that. I'm going to go ahead and keep focusing on this. I really enjoy that kind of prioritization that there is in tug of war games. And Caper Europe is just from top to bottom in terms of the theme, the art, the production, everything. It's so, so good, and I really, really like it.
First up is going to be Wingspan Asia. Now, this is sort of a cheat because the content of Wingspan Asia can just be incorporated into your Wingspan game. You can even use the content from Wingspan Asia to do like a 6 and 7 player game of Wingspan, but it also functions as a standalone. And we've collected a lot of Wingspan content ourselves, but we keep the Wingspan Asia stuff separate because it's really nice to, if you want to play some Wingspan, to not have to haul out everything. You can kind of just take this little portable, set with you. So I play this with my wife and stuff, and we'll just play with the Wingspan Asia stuff because it is Wingspan in every way, with some like cool 2-player jockeying for position, a race to certain goals element. There's this central board, and you're going to have these pieces that kind of form together to make a yin yang, which is just fun. It's not part of the game, but it's cool. And you're kind of like doing a little bit of area control, again, more jockeying for position on the central board based on these kind of goals and things that you're doing. So I like that this one is, Wingspan's got a great system. It doesn't need complete overhauling or anything like that, but you get this little element that is unique to a 2-player experience. So I like that it's fully compatible. I like that you can play it on its own, and having this kind of special board, but you can also, again, incorporate it into the larger whole. So it's down here kind of at 10 just because it is cross-compatible and can be incorporated as just like an expansion, but the fact that it's a standalone makes Wingspan Asia, for me, a really good place to start if you want to try Wingspan. Start with Wingspan Asia, because if you want to get more Wingspan stuff later, you can shuffle everything into that, or you have kind of a nice, affordable entry point that isn't going to take up so much space on your shelf.
Here's the thing. I think this is my favorite version of the Duelosaur Island world, and this is going to be Duelosaur Island. I really like Duelosaur Island. Duelosaur Island and then the Dinosaur Island Roar and Right, the Roll and Right, are probably my two favorite versions. I like them more than Dinosaur Island and Dinosaur World, which are much, much, much bigger games. I really like Duelosaur Island. Duelosaur Island is a two-player version of Dinosaur Island. But you're kind of doing all the same stuff, and that's why I like it. Like, there's a lot of things about Dinosaur Island and Dinosaur World that I enjoy, but they're kind of more distilled in something like Duelosaur Island. But this is a game kind of like themed loosely on Jurassic Park, where you are putting on a big dinosaur theme park, and you are getting dinosaurs, you're getting DNA to make those dinosaurs, you are attracting visitors, you have various employees, your dinosaurs can like break out and eat people and stuff, all this different kind of stuff. It's such a fun theme. It's got this really great like 90s kind of like bright color art that I really, really enjoy. It's kind of like, at least for me, what made me really fall in love with Kwanchai Moria, the artist. I really, really love the art in this game. But Duelosaur Island is kind of like those games, but just kind of distilled down and with some different mechanics. You still have all the base stuff where you're getting dinosaurs, you're getting DNA to put those dinosaurs in play, you're getting attractions and you're getting employees and all this stuff, but it's just smaller and easier and much, much, much quicker. This also has the added mechanic of an I split you choose mechanic. There are these DNA dice, which are going to give you kind of certain actions, again, give you DNAs, give you certain things you can do. And the person who rolls them is going to be I splitting you choosing, which is one of those mechanics that I think is very underutilized, where I get to split them up, but then you get to choose first. So I can't like make one of them really, really good and one really bad, because you're then just going to choose the good one. So you have to kind of give the other person what they want while also giving yourself what you want. I really, really enjoy that aspect of it. But then everything else is just kind of like Dinosaur Island, Dinosaur World, but just easier and quicker and much smaller, and it's really, really fun. And this game is like one of those few kind of games that like I actually wish was longer. Like the medium and long version of the game is still like 30 to 45 minutes. It's really, really short. I don't know. I really, really love Duelosaur Island. I think it kind of takes all the great stuff from those big games and just makes it easier to play. And a lot of times that's just what I want.
Number 7 is going to be Carcassonne the Castle. This is a two-player version, standalone version of Carcassonne, designed by Reiner Knizia, actually, that provides like a really cool, unique kind of experience. It's very much Carcassonne, where you're going to be laying out tiles, and you have to make, you know, landscapes and stuff match and everything. But this time you are building everything within the walls of this castle. So there's this kind of funky frame that you build, and everything would be built within the castle. And you're building keeps and little markets and things, and there's roads that you would expect and stuff in Carcassonne. And you're kind of racing around the edge of the castle, which is the scoreboard. And there's gonna be little milestones and things you can reach and get bonuses if you hit that first. So I like the idea of, you know, typical kind of Carcassonne things where you're gonna place a tile, you can put one of your little meeples down to hopefully score that when things like roads and stuff complete. You're kind of trying to build as big of a house as you can that's completed. But having the extra constraint of being within the walls of this castle and not having, you know, infinite room to kind of expand out in whatever way you want creates really kind of interesting choices and things. So it's a little more puzzly than a typical game of Carcassonne. But the way you're kind of jockeying and trying to make sure that you're not, you know, inadvertently helping your opponent in this kind of heads up way, because we are within, you know, this confined area, is really kind of cool. So this is one that I thought was, felt very different and stuff. This is one that I truly don't know how available it is anymore, but it is a really cool Carcassonne experience, especially if you played a couple different versions and want to have something that has a little different flavor, designed in a slightly different way, being with, you know, from Knizia and stuff. It's a real winner.
Next up is going to be White Castle Duel. And I'll completely admit, when this game got announced, I was like, why? Because the White Castle, which is such a good game, is already really, really good at 2-player. So I was just like, if White Castle is already really good at 2-player, do we need White Castle Duel? And here's the thing, White Castle Duel is really fun. It's so much fun. Oh my gosh, I was shocked at how good it was. And here's the thing, it is pretty different from White Castle. You have a lot of the same kind of things that you're doing. You know, your courtiers are kind of going over the castle. You have like the training grounds. You have those different kinds of themes in it. But the way that it works is quite different. One, there's no dice in the game at all. You instead have these little lantern tokens that are black, white, and orange, which are the kind of colors from the main ones. And instead of having one lantern row like you do in the original White Castle, which you will trigger a couple times throughout the game, you now have a lantern row for each of those colors. And so as you're on your turn, you're basically putting one of these tokens out that, again, are one of the colors, and you'll be kind of doing the actions associated with that spot, getting resources, doing the kind of actions, doing a lot of the White Castle-y kind of stuff. But it's really interesting because one thing you can do is you can move the actions in the game. You have these tokens that you can kind of turn into move some of the actions, which will benefit you if you're like, oh, I really need these two together, or I really, really need this thing, but that space is blocked for me now. I can now move it over here and then do that. So that's also really, really cool. But the really interesting part is like how often you get to tap those lantern rows. You get to do it all the time, and it's really, really cool, particularly in the second half of the game, because the first half of the game is going to be you and your opponent kind of putting out these tokens, these little, little cylinders, out on the board, doing actions, doing kind of a bunch of White Castle stuff. But in the second half of the game, you're then going to be pulling things back to your board, again, doing the actions that you're pulling from. But whatever color you pull back, you then get to like run that lantern row. So if I pull back an orange one, I get to run my orange lantern row. And that is so much fun. It really does feel quite different from White Castle, which I was not expecting. I was like, oh, is this just gonna be like a smaller version of White Castle? I don't know if I need that because I already like White Castle at 2 players. This game is actually quite different and really, really fun. I really need to play both of them a couple more times to figure out which one I like more, because as of right now, they're pretty even for me, which really goes to show how good of a dual version this is. And so I was completely wrong. I was kind of like, I'm kind of doubting, do we need this? And turns out, man, they did a really good job.
Next up is going to be Splendor Duel. This is a more recent one. This is a 2-player version of Splendor, a classic game. Here you are, again, collecting gems to complete these cards, essentially, which will often give you kind of permanent gem production that you can use on future turns. But now, instead of having kind of a standard system for drafting gems where you can take a few different colors or 2 of the same and stuff like that, there's this central board. And you can take up to 3 of these gem tiles in kind of a tic-tac-toe, row, column, or diagonal. So they have to be kind of orthogonally or diagonally adjacent to each other. And so there's this kind of like tactical spatial puzzle at the center of the table for collecting those gem tokens and stuff to then be able to complete those cards. And that's something that I really enjoy. I think it's a fun extra little element. It's not massively different or crazy, but it is kind of a fun thing that for me in my brain, it tickles in a way that the kind of standard way that you would draft gem tokens in base Splendor doesn't work as well for me. And that's just for me. Obviously, there's many people who love that game a ton, so I'm in the minority there. But I really like the kind of tactical nature of how I can, grab a certain line of tiles. Feels really nice to be able to get exactly what I need and do it in that way. And then the way that board kind of, gets emptied slowly and then restocked and what new opportunities are created from that. And you're still doing a kind of a race to points. Now with this one, As you complete these cards, some of them are worth victory points, and you can either get to 20 victory points total across any and all cards you have. You can get 10 points of a single color. So if you build a bunch of blue, for example, you might be able to get a bunch of points in that. If you get to 10 in one color, you can win that way. And there's also
Number 4 is going to be Caverna Cave vs. Cave. This is a really good kind of distilled down version of Caverna that Uwe used to do. Uwe doesn't really do this anymore, or maybe, yeah, I'm trying to think of the last time Uwe did this, but basically when Uwe Rosenberg, who's the designer, made one of their big games like Agricola or Le Havre or Caverna in this case, Uwe would also usually do a 2-player version of that game that was usually some part of the game massively distilled down to just that. And that was it. And a lot of times, pretty much always, these 2-player versions were really, really fun. And Uwe hasn't really done that. They didn't do that for like Feast for Odin and stuff like that, and I kind of really wish they had, because that was a really cool thing that they used to do. I guess Patchwork is kind of the distilled version of Feast for Odin, isn't it? And so I guess maybe they did. But nonetheless, Caverna Cave vs. Cave is a really, really, again, like distilled down version of Caverna. Caverna is a big old game where you're using your dwarves to build out your cave. You're also building out your like farmland. You're going on big expeditions. It's a big honking game. There's all these room tiles that you can build in your cave and do all these things. There's a whole bunch of different bits, all these different animals, lots and lots and lots of stuff. But Caverna Cave vs. Cave is basically just you building out your dwelling. It's just your cave versus another cave. And so all the farming stuff, all the expedition stuff, all that stuff is gone. It's just the cave. Again, very distilled down. But it's very, very fun. You're basically going to start where you only have like one space in your cave, and you're going to have to dig out and excavate the rest. There are going to be actions that you can do, and each turn you're going to take one of these actions, and kind of like Caverna, every round there's going to be a new action that kind of comes out. So you don't know necessarily what order the actions are going to come out in, but you know which ones can be there if you've played the game before. But it kind of has that same Caverna-ness to it. And then you're kind of uncovering stuff. There's also a whole bunch of buildings you can put in your cave, all these different kinds of things. But again, it's just that distilled down version of Caverna. And again, this whole list in a lot of ways is kind of the distilled down version. But Uwe is kind of famous for doing this. And Cave vs. Cave is like really, really highly regarded on BGG, as it should be. It's really fun. It's not just like this is just like a 2-player cash grab, which does happen in the industry, but these ones never were. And Cave vs. Cave is probably the best of them. I've played a couple of these 2-player only versions of these games, and Cave vs. Cave is by far my favorite because I like that part. I like the excavating. I like the not knowing where stuff is. I like the part of Caverna of not knowing what actions are going to come out in what order. I really, really enjoy that. And you're kind of doing one of my favorite parts of Caverna, again, in just a smaller, easier to play, much quicker package. That's just really, really fun. So Cave vs. Cave, if you haven't tried out like the 2-player versions of these games by Uwe, make sure to check them out because they're really, really fun.
Next up is going to be Codenames Duet, celebrating its anniversary along with Codenames this year. This is a 2-player cooperative version of Codenames, which is a famous clue-giving game where you were trying to get your now teammate to guess all of the words. There's a 5x5 grid of words in the middle of the table, and I have certain words on my side of the map that I need to get you to guess. My teammate has certain words that they need to get me to guess, and 3 of our words are on both of our maps. We of course don't know which 3. So in all versions of Codenames, you can give a 1-word clue and then say how many words your clue pertains to. So I could say animal 2 because there's, a pig and a horse for a very easy example. So you are trying to get people to guess multiple answers based on a single clue. And especially in Codenames Duet, it's really important that you're getting multiple answers per turn because you only have so many turns to get every word found by both players. So you really have to try to be clever in your clue giving. And that's something that I really enjoy with this version, is that kind of pressure to, I'm not just racing against another team, we're racing against time. And there is not enough time for us just to go one word, one clue for one word at a time. We have to be more efficient than that. The fact that there's 3 words that are overlaps for both of us and we don't know which ones those are is really cool. And then there's also an assassin, or in Codenames Duet, there are 3 assassins for us, where if they guess that word, we immediately lose. We each have 3 assassins, and they may or may not be the same words in the middle. So something that might be, something I need Nick to guess might be on his side an assassin, which just like messes with your brain because you're like, well, I don't want to do that, even though it's not an assassin for him, it's just an assassin for me. So he wants to make sure I don't guess it, but it just does cool, interesting stuff where it messes with your brain. And it just makes it super duper fun. So all versions of Codenames are awesome, but Codenames Duet is our personal favorite.
Next up is going to be the classic Seven Wonders Duel. This is one of those games that is a very interesting 2-player version of a game because of the fact that almost always, not always in this case too, almost always the 2-player version of the game is a smaller version of the game. That has been most of this list. This is a situation where the 2-player version is actually significantly heavier than the base game. Seven Wonders Duel is a lot bigger, not necessarily in terms of actual size, but in terms of like complexity than Seven Wonders. Seven Wonders is a drafting game where you're drafting various resources and certain things where you're trying to build out these 7 wonders and that kind of stuff, but it is a relatively light game. It's generally considered a gateway game because it's as light as it is. Whereas Seven Wonders Duel, I don't think really anyone would consider a gateway game. Seven Wonders Duel has the pyramid solitaire type of way of drafting cards, which I really, really like. I'm sure there are other games that did that, but this was the first game, at least that I saw in like the big mainstream of board games that did this, where now all the cards you're gonna be drafting are in a big card pyramid. Some of them are face up, some of them are face down. And this game is all about tactics because you're kind of doing the same things. You're getting these resources. Oh, and I have a brick resource. Now I can put this other building into play easier because I have this resource. I don't have to like buy this resource from my opponent or anything like that. So you're getting these resources. You're doing set collection. You're trying to build wonders. You're kind of doing all the thematic same stuff. But a lot of it is based around this card pyramid because as you take a card, if another card then is completely exposed, it will then flip over and basically become available for the next person. So this game is all about tactics and trying to get what you want and forcing your opponent to give it to you because like you can only take this card and that's going to free up these 2 spots for me. And you're trying to not give them what they want. And on top of that, there's 3 different ways to win this game. You can have a science victory, you can have a military victory, and then you can have a points victory. And so there's also the whole point of like trying to fend off multiple types of victories. Like I'm going for a military victory, so Mike is constantly trying to stop me with the military victory, but while he's doing that, I'm not paying attention to the fact that he's gaining a lot of science and he might win that way. So you have to think in all these different ways with the game while managing that big card pyramid. It's just so much fun. It's absolutely great. I love Seven Wonders Duel. It's really, really good. But again, it's one of those weird ones that's kind of, it's actually just bigger and heavier than the base game, which is very, very odd, but I'm glad it exists. But it's not a number 1 because the number 1 is kind of a different version of this game.
Now, we already mentioned Seven Wonders Duel, but for us, we're Lord of the Rings fans. So the Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth is awesome, and we love it so much. This is based on Seven Wonders Duel, which is based on Seven Wonders, of course. This is sort of a duel of a duel, I guess. But this time it's centered on Lord of the Rings, and you are the Free Peoples versus Sauron's forces. And you are going to be drafting cards very similar to Seven Wonders Duel. You're going to have a card pyramid. You're going to be drafting cards to get money, to advance militarily and kind of put out your little towers onto areas of the map. You are, the science in this one is you kind of forming alliances with the different peoples of Middle-earth and stuff like that. So it's something where the mechanisms of Seven Wonders Duel are so fantastic. They're so awesome. It works really well. And they just take that and port it over and give you a bit of a map so you have a greater sense of, the kind of push and pull for control over the regions of the map. And then, of course, depending on which side you are, you also want to make sure the ring doesn't get caught. So if you are the free people, every time you collect one or more rings, you'll kind of advance along this track as you're running away from the Nazgul. If you are Sauron's forces and you take any ring things, you will kind of progress closer to Frodo. And what's kind of interesting is there's this dual layer translucent track. So if I'm the Nazgul and I advance closer and then you keep running away, I never get further away. There, you know, so you're trying to race to get to the end to destroy the ring and win the game. But every time Sauron gains on you in that way, there's no going back. So you have to kind of control the rings and not let that get away from you as a free people. It's really, really interesting. There are kind of these landmarks you can go for, which these monuments and things which are, you know, in place of the wonders, which allow you to put out more, you know, pieces out onto the board, and you can win by, you know, destroying the ring or catching the ring bearer. You can win by getting a certain amount of alliances with the different people of Middle-earth, and you sort of take over and dominate that way. Or if you take over essentially the whole map, you can win. So it keeps that multiple win conditions as well from Seven Wonders Duel, but puts it again in the context of things from Lord of the Rings, which is just awesome. It's got fantastic Vincent Dutrait art as well. Yeah, this is one where for us it gets the edge above Seven Wonders Duel because we're Lord of the Rings fans and the art is awesome. So those are some 2-player only dual versions based on other games.
I'm always interested in them.
Yeah,
because we play
me
mostly
too.
2 players. I'm always just like, 2 players?
I'm like, well, what are you doing this different?
What are you doing over there?
2-player now. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, let us know what your favorite 2-player versions of games, or just your favorite 2-player games, down in the comments below. And I think that's going to be it, eh?
That's going to be it, everybody. Get your picks in the comments below. Let us know how we did with our picks, and we'll see you in the next Top 10.
Bye, everybody.